Officer stops, black woman at security check. Then she flashes her secret homeland security badge. Listen closely. In the echoing corridors of one of America's busiest airports, a routine security check transformed into a confrontation that no one saw coming. A weary traveler, a black woman named Angela, found herself singled out for extra scrutiny. She tried to keep her cool, but the officer kept pushing. Then, in a sudden move, she flashed something that changed everything, a secret homeland security badge. What followed was a storm of suspicion, drama, and unexpected twists that would unravel a web of hidden agendas and hard-won truths. This is the story of how a single moment in line sparked an extraordinary reckoning. Angela Givens rose at dawn, the shrill beeping of her alarm echoing through her small suburban apartment just outside Washington, D.C. The day had come. She was scheduled to fly to Atlanta for a mandatory conference organized by the Department of Homeland Security. A new policy initiative was being launched under the administration, and as a relatively junior but promising officer, Angela was chosen to attend. She had carefully packed her bags, put on a modest business suit, and glanced at her reflection in the mirror. The image she saw was of a determined black woman in her mid-30s, sporting close-cropped hair and an unwavering gaze. But it wasn't vanity that caused her to pause. It was the anticipation of what the day might bring. Working for DHS carried a certain gravity. Angela was no stranger to the intricacies and sensitivities that come with national security work. Still, her position was not something she flaunted openly. In fact, a significant part of her job demanded a certain level of anonymity. She rarely drew attention to her official badge and credentials unless absolutely necessary. Her life was one of balance, protecting the country while trying to remain grounded in her community. Traffic that morning was unforgiving. Angela inched along the beltway, the radio droning on about local politics and the occasional scandal. Her mind drifted to her grandmother, who had raised her in Charlotte, North Carolina, and often reminded her, "In life, never forget where you come from, and never let anyone get in the way of where you're going." Those words echoed as she navigated the jam-packed highway. They were words that she would often cling to whenever adversity reared its head. She sighed, remembering the difficulty of climbing the ranks in a field where not many looked like her. Yet, she always found ways to remain steadfast, ensuring her presence was known when it mattered the most. Arriving at Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport, Angela hustled to find a parking spot. Her flight was early, and she prided herself on punctuality. She spotted a sign for long-term parking and maneuvered her compact sedan into a narrow space. By the time she got to the shuttle bus that would take her to the main terminal, she was already checking her watch, calculating the minutes she had left before boarding. But something in the pit of her stomach made her uneasy. It wasn't a premonition of danger she had felt that chill before in her more perilous assignments, but an inkling that the day ahead would bring something unexpected. The bus dropped her off at the main entrance, and she darted inside. The bustle of travelers was immediate. Families, business people, and tourists converged into a maze of lines that snaked through the terminal. Angela proceeded to the automated kiosk to print her boarding pass, then made her way to the security checkpoint. She noticed that the lines were surprisingly long for an early morning. The distinctive uniforms of TSA officers were visible at the front, their gazes surveying the sea of passengers. Little did Angela know, a certain Officer Bradley Townsend was manning one of the lanes. Townsend prided himself on his meticulous nature, perhaps to a fault. He'd been on the job for over a decade and had developed a reputation for being thorough, sometimes too thorough. Some of his colleagues appreciated his vigilance. Others found it overbearing, bordering on harassment. But Townsend's own sense of self-worth was wrapped up in never missing a thing, no matter how inconsequential it seemed. As Angela inched closer to the checkpoint, she could feel tension in the air. A child in line behind her was crying. A mother in front of her was stressing over a lost ID. The staccato commands of TSA personnel: shoes off, laptops out, no liquids over 3 ounces. Set a frantic tempo. Angela prepared by removing her shoes, belt, and jacket. She placed her bag on the conveyor and stepped through the metal detector as instructed. The machine beeped. "Ma'am, step aside, please." Townsend's voice cut through the chatter. He motioned Angela toward a roped-off area. Random screening. Angela tried to remain calm, though the beeping annoyed her, especially since she knew she had followed all the protocols. She nodded politely and walked into the roped-off area. She handed her ID and boarding pass to Townsend, forcing a courteous smile. "Is there a problem?" she asked, her tone measured. Townsend's eyes were already scanning her ID with almost obsessive attention. "We're just taking extra precautions. You know how it is with everything going on in the world." Angela didn't respond immediately. She had seen and dealt with all manner of procedures. Something in Townsend's stare was different, a certain intensity that made her uneasy. He flipped the ID over, comparing the details, then asked, "Where are you headed, Miss Givens?" "Atlanta," Angela replied, keeping it simple. "Business or pleasure?" She raised an eyebrow. TSA personnel sometimes ask extra questions, but this felt more intrusive than usual. "Business," she said, resisting the urge to volunteer more. Townsend didn't budge. He flicked his gaze from her ID to her face. "Step over to the scanner, please. We'll do a quick pat-down if necessary." Angela complied, though an unsettling warmth spread across her cheeks. The beep had probably been triggered by the clasp of her bra or some trivial item. She stepped into the full-body scanner, raised her arms. Once done, Townsend peered at the monitor. She could sense his diligence shifting into suspicion. It was a look she'd encountered before, someone forming an instant bias. He motioned for another officer to pat her down. This second officer was gentler, professional but thorough. Angela stood with arms extended while the pat-down proceeded. She tried to keep her expression neutral, though inside she simmered. It felt humiliating, but she wasn't about to cause a scene. The second officer finished and gave a non-verbal nod of "she's clear," but Townsend still seemed unsatisfied. "I need you to open your bag," he said flatly, beckoning her toward a small counter. Around them, other travelers watched, curious. Angela began to feel a wave of embarrassment mixed with indignation. She wasn't used to being singled out quite this aggressively. She also knew that pulling out her DHS badge in a crowded area could create even more of a spectacle. Still, she opened her carry-on bag, showing Townsend the items inside: a laptop, some files for the conference, a small bag of toiletries. Everything was in compliance. He prodded through her belongings, picking up a hair product bottle. "Is this 3 ounces or less?" he asked skeptically. "Yes," she said, her voice clipped. He placed the bottle aside and rifled through her papers, carefully reading the headings. Angela felt a wave of alarm. Some of those documents were marked for official use, and not something to be shared with just anyone. She tried to maintain composure. "Calm down, Angela." She could not afford to draw attention to her real position, but Townsend was making it difficult. "All right," Townsend said at last, though he didn't sound remotely satisfied. He handed her ID back, looked her up and down, and waved her through with a dismissive gesture. "You're free to go," he said, his tone implying that he had done her a favor. Angela exhaled, a subtle sigh of relief. She repacked her belongings, slid on her shoes, and moved away from the checkpoint. Yet, even as she hurried toward her gate, she could feel Townsend's eyes boring into her back. By the time Angela reached her gate, boarding had already begun. She managed to slip into line, gave the attendant her boarding pass, and took her seat on the plane. Once settled, she tried to distract herself by reading some conference material. But her mind kept drifting back to that tense exchange. It felt as though Townsend had overstepped. She stared out the window, watching the airport ground crews scurry about. Eventually, the plane rumbled into motion, lifting off into the early morning sky. Angela closed her eyes, telling herself it was a minor incident, not worth dwelling on. Soon she'd be in Atlanta, meeting with colleagues, discussing policies, and focusing on more important issues. Yet that sense of unease gnawed at her. She had encountered discriminatory treatment before, both subtle and overt, but it usually came from random strangers, not from a federal officer who should know better. Nevertheless, Angela silently reminded herself, stay professional. Choose your battles. The flight was uneventful, and Angela arrived in Atlanta by midday. Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport was as busy as ever. She navigated the concourses, found her suitcase at baggage claim, and headed to the taxi queue. The conference was scheduled at a major downtown hotel, the Hyatt Regency on Peachtree Street, a real place well known for hosting large events. It was a grand building with glass elevators that soared through the atrium, a venue often chosen for government gatherings because of its high security features and ample meeting spaces. Angela checked in, took the elevator to her room on the 17th floor, and let out a tired sigh as she sank onto the plush bed. She thought about calling her mother or her grandmother to let them know she had arrived safely. Her phone buzzed an email from her boss, reminding her about a dinner meeting that evening with a handful of DHS officials. Gathering her composure, she decided to freshen up and get ready. The dinner was a casual affair in one of the hotel's private dining rooms. Angela wore a simple black dress, paired with flats, and carried herself with a quiet confidence. Her colleagues greeted her warmly, some of them teasing her about her unwavering punctuality. The evening went smoothly, polite conversation, talk of new security measures, and a bit of networking with higher-ups. Angela felt that the earlier incident was behind her, a mere footnote in an otherwise routine travel day. But fate had other plans. During coffee and dessert, Angela's phone vibrated. She excused herself and checked the screen. An unknown number. She declined to answer, but within seconds, a text message appeared. This is Officer Townsend from TSA. I need to speak with you ASAP regarding an issue with your travel documents. Please call me. Her heart skipped a beat, confusion and anger mingling. How did Townsend get my number? What could he possibly want? She stepped away from the group, retreating toward a deserted hallway. She tapped a response, her fingers trembling slightly. What is the issue? This is my personal phone. She waited, eyes scanning the hallway. Moments later, Townsend responded, I can't discuss it over text. Please call me or meet me in person. This is about national security. Angela's blood ran cold. National security? She had been careful with her documents. There was nothing in her bag beyond what she had clearance to carry. Was he trying to intimidate her? She had no desire to meet him alone, especially after the friction at the checkpoint. She texted back, I am in Atlanta for a DHS conference. If this is urgent, contact the DHS liaison or my superior. They can reach me. Another text from him, no need to involve others yet. This could be a misunderstanding. Let's talk. She drew a breath, eyes narrowed at the phone. Something was off. She returned to the dining room, though her mind was elsewhere for the rest of the evening. After dinner wrapped up, Angela politely excused herself and retreated to her room. She locked the door, placed a call to her immediate supervisor, a seasoned DHS official named Thomas Morland. Tom, I got a weird text from a TSA officer who scanned me at the airport. Townsend. He's demanding a meeting, says it's about national security. She heard the confusion in Morland's voice. That's highly irregular, Angela. TSA concerns are typically handled through formal channels. Did you reveal anything at the checkpoint that might have raised flags? No, Angela replied. But he was overly scrutinizing everything. I'm worried he might have seen some of our documents. Or maybe he's fishing for something. "I'll check into it," Morland said, sounding resolute. "Do not meet him alone. Forward me his messages. We'll put this on record." Relieved that she had backup, Angela thanked him. She forwarded the texts and tried to calm herself. Sleep was elusive that night. She found herself checking the locks on her door more than once. Morning brought a flurry of activity. Angela dressed for the conference in a navy blue pantsuit, pinned on a discreet DHS lapel pin, and joined the throngs of attendees bustling between workshops. She caught glimpses of higher-ups delivering speeches, promising to improve interagency collaboration. The event aimed to streamline processes between TSA, ICE, and other DHS branches. So, ironically, Townsend was likely part of the synergy they were trying to foster. Or perhaps he missed the memo about how to cooperate politely, Angela mused bitterly. Between panel discussions, Angela checked her phone. No messages from Townsend. Maybe the matter had resolved. After lunch, she sat in on a briefing about new cybersecurity measures at airports. Her mind wandered to Townsend's bizarre behavior. Her instincts told her this was more than a typical case of overzealous security. She jotted notes, half listening to the speaker. Angela wondered if Townsend would try to escalate things. During a networking break, she found her supervisor, Thomas Morland, amid a cluster of DHS officials. She approached, and he signaled her to wait. Once free, he pulled her aside. "Angela, we looked into Townsend's background," he said quietly. "He's a seasoned TSA officer with a clean record. But we did find out he's been reprimanded twice for going outside the chain of command. The details are vague, though. Something about suspecting travelers were involved in illegal activity and harassing them off-site." Angela's unease deepened. "So, he's not above chasing personal vendettas." Morland gave a curt nod. "We're not sure if that's what he's doing with you, but be cautious. Our internal security department is aware. If he contacts you again, let me know immediately." The afternoon continued in a blur of presentations and group discussions. Angela kept her phone on silent, glancing at it every so often, expecting another bizarre text. By late evening, there was still radio silence from Townsend. She began to hope that the matter might be over. Perhaps after Morland's inquiry, Townsend realized he couldn't contact her directly without attracting scrutiny. She ended the day with a quiet dinner by herself in the hotel's restaurant, then returned to her room and spent the rest of the night revising a report she was slated to present on day 3 of the conference. Outside her window, Atlanta's skyline glimmered, a tapestry of lights. She felt a twinge of homesickness for DC, for the comfort of her own apartment. But the calm night at least gave her a chance to catch her breath. Still, fate had a perverse sense of timing. Angela was jolted awake the next morning by a persistent knock on her hotel room door. She glanced at the clock. 6:30 a.m. Who on earth is banging at this hour? She threw on a robe and peered through the peephole. Her stomach twisted at the sight of a familiar face. Officer Townsend. He stood in the hallway, not in TSA uniform, but in a casual jacket and jeans. He looked strangely determined, and in the background, a few curious hotel guests passed by, casting uneasy glances. Angela's mind raced with alarm. How did he find her room? She squared her shoulders and opened the door just enough to face him. "What are you doing here?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Townsend, hands in his pockets, offered a tense smile. "Sorry to disturb you, Miss Givens. I need to talk about what happened at the checkpoint." She frowned, her heart pounding. "I have no business with you. If there was an issue with my credentials, you should have followed the proper channels. I've already informed my supervisor. You shouldn't be here." He nodded slowly. "I figured you might have done that, but I wanted to approach you directly off the record. I need to know why you had certain documents in your bag." Angela's eyes narrowed. Those were conference materials, all of them legally cleared for my level of access, and none of your concern. I'm a DHS employee, not some random passenger. You had no right to read them. Townsend's face twitched with barely contained frustration. I'm not trying to cause trouble. But these documents referenced potential insider threats within the TSA. It made me wonder if you or your colleagues are investigating people like me. Angela's jaw tightened. So he had read more than just the headings. That is classified information. If you suspect wrongdoing, you report it through your chain of command. You do not show up at my hotel room unannounced. He took a small step forward, eyes pleading. Look, I've been working security checkpoints for a long time, Miss Givens. I know something's not right. The new measures they're pushing for, they're focusing on infiltration from within. I've seen signs. I know you see them too. Let's help each other. She felt a surge of anger mixed with an odd sympathy. Was Townsend merely paranoid, or did he genuinely care about internal threats? It didn't change the fact that he was violating protocol. I can't discuss this, she said, voice trembling with restraint. You're overstepping, Officer Townsend. Leave. Now. Townsend opened his mouth to argue, but something stopped him. Perhaps it was the determination in her eyes, or the knowledge he was well out of line. He took a breath, as though waging an internal battle, then said, I'm sorry. I had to see if you'd confirm my suspicions. He turned and walked away, leaving Angela shaken. She closed the door, bolted it, and took a moment to steady her breathing. Immediately, she grabbed her phone and called Thomas Morland. The phone rang a few times before he answered groggily. Tom, Townsend came to my room, she said, trying to keep her voice low, even though she was alone. He's talking about the insider threat documents. He wants my help. This is beyond inappropriate. A brief silence. Then Morland's voice, now fully awake, I'm contacting the local DHS field office. They need to know about this. We can't have TSA personnel harassing our staff. Are you all right? Yes, just rattled, Angela admitted. Stay put. Don't open your door for anyone. I'll let you know what steps we'll take. And Angela, be careful. She ended the call, feeling both validated and frightened. Townsend seemed desperate, and desperation could be dangerous. In the hush of her hotel room, Angela found herself eyeing her DHS credentials tucked safely in the inner pocket of her suitcase. She never liked to brandish them needlessly, but given the escalating situation, she wondered if the time might be coming when she'd have to reveal her role more explicitly, if only to protect herself. The third day of the conference arrived with tension in the air. Angela attended the morning panels, her mind clouded by thoughts of Townsend's unannounced visit. She found herself scanning the crowd, half expecting him to appear in the hallways or at the coffee station. Each time an unfamiliar man in a jacket passed by, her pulse quickened, worried it might be him. Despite her anxiety, Angela delivered her presentation on the new data-sharing protocols intended to bridge gaps between state and federal agencies. She spoke clearly, answering questions from the audience. A few murmured voices praised her thoroughness. Once she stepped off the stage, she felt a slight surge of confidence. Her professional work was on track, at least. But she knew the personal matter with Townsend lingered like a dark cloud. At lunchtime, she returned to her room to find a note slipped under the door. She froze, checking the hallway first empty. The note read, in messy handwriting, "Meet me by the fountain in Centennial Park at 7 p.m. if you want answers, Townsend." Her frustration flared. He's doubling down. She snapped a photo of the note and immediately sent it to Morland with a text. He left this. Advice? Within minutes, Morland texted back. Do not meet him. Our field agents are already trying to locate him. Stay safe. That evening, Angela debated what to do. She was scheduled for a group dinner with other conference attendees. The invitation was from a mid-level director at DHS, who might become an important ally in the future. Missing that dinner would be a career misstep. Meeting Townsend alone would be an even bigger risk. But what if he knows something critical about an internal threat? Her conscience wrestled with the possibilities. Townsend, though unprofessional, seemed genuinely concerned. Could ignoring him allow a real threat to go unchecked? She reminded herself, that's not how we do things. We follow protocols for a reason. Resolving to trust the system, she decided not to show up at the fountain. She went to dinner, making polite conversation about potential budget allocations and cross-agency synergy. Every so often, she'd catch herself checking the time, her stomach twisting with guilt and doubt. A part of her worried that Townsend might do something reckless if she didn't appear. When she returned to her room that night, there were no more notes, no phone calls, no texts. She tried to sleep, telling herself that ignoring Townsend had been the right move. The conference ended on a high note, with a closing speech from a DHS undersecretary lauding the participants for their dedication. Angela felt a burst of pride, but the shadow of Townsend's intrusion still lingered. She packed her bags and prepared to fly back to DC. The flight was scheduled for the next morning. That evening, just as she was about to settle in, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was Thomas Morland. "Angela," he said, his voice terse, "we have a situation." Townsend was found on camera entering the restricted baggage area at the Atlanta airport tonight. He was confronted by security and he fled. Angela's eyes widened. "Fled? He's gone rogue?" "Seems so," Morland said grimly. "He used his TSA credentials to gain access. We're not sure what he was after, but this is serious. Local authorities are on alert. Our people are involved too." The news sank in, bringing a wave of anxiety. "Do we know if he took anything?" "Not yet," Morland answered. "But we suspect he might be trying to gather evidence on what he thinks is an inside job, possibly rummaging through baggage to find something. The irony is, if he's concerned about a threat, he's going about it in the worst possible way. He's become the threat himself." Angela's thoughts whirled. Townsend's paranoia or dedication had spiraled out of control. She found herself drawn into a storm she never asked for. "I'm scheduled to fly out tomorrow," she said quietly. "Should I postpone?" "No, for now. Keep your schedule," Morland advised. "Airport security is on high alert, but you'll have the advantage of traveling under official auspices. Just stay vigilant. We'll have a DHS liaison meet you at the airport." Angela agreed, though a heavy feeling churned in her stomach. Townsend's meltdown could put a target on my back, she thought. She doubted he'd do anything to harm her physically, but his erratic behavior left everything uncertain. The next morning dawned clear and bright. Angela arrived at Hartsfield-Jackson with extra time to spare. She was relieved to see a DHS liaison, a tall woman named Special Agent Valerie Rodriguez, waiting near the Delta check in counters. They exchanged quick introductions. Rodriguez had a serious but reassuring demeanor, and Angela felt safer knowing she wasn't alone. Security was visibly tighter. Extra officers patrolled the terminal. Angela couldn't help but scan every face, worried Townsend might appear from the shadows. She and Rodriguez navigated to a special screening area reserved for federal employees on official travel. Normally, Angela went through standard lanes to avoid drawing attention, but this was no ordinary circumstance. Just as they approached the screening point, Angela's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, expecting a message from Morland. Instead, a single text from Townsend flashed, "Leaving. Good luck. You'll need it. The truth will come out." Her chest tightened. She showed the text to Rodriguez, who responded with a dark frown. "He's either threatening you or trying to guilt-trip you. Our local teams are still searching for him. Let's get you on that plane." They continued through the VIP lane, passing with no trouble this time. Angela exhaled relief once she was through. Maybe Townsend was bluffing, Or maybe he just wanted to make her uneasy. Either way, it seemed she would be boarding without incident. But fate had other plans, once again. As Angela and Rodriguez walked toward the concourse leading to her gate, a sudden commotion erupted. A man dashed out from behind a row of seats, stumbling. Shouts filled the air. It took Angela a moment to realize it was Townsend, his jacket disheveled, a wild gleam in his eyes. 2 airport security officers sprinted after him. He spotted Angela and froze, momentarily torn between continuing his flight and speaking to her. Rodriguez placed herself protectively in front of Angela, drawing her sidearm. "Townsend, don't move!" she shouted, voice echoing in the terminal. Panicked travelers scattered. Townsend skidded to a halt, hands partially raised. "I don't want to hurt anyone," he said, voice raspy. "I just need Angela to know I found something." "There's a real threat, people in high places," Rodriguez barked. "Stop! Get down on the ground. Now!" He locked eyes with Angela over Rodriguez's shoulder. "Check the crate bound for Dallas. Terminal B. You'll see I'm not crazy." Before anyone could respond, Townsend bolted again, weaving around startled passengers. The airport officers gave chase, but Townsend was surprisingly agile. Within seconds, he disappeared around a corner, leaving chaos behind. Rodriguez spoke into her radio, alerting others. Angela stood there, heart pounding. Had Townsend truly discovered something, or was this another paranoid delusion? "Check the crate bound for Dallas, Terminal B." The words tumbled around in her mind. Rodriguez shook her head in disbelief, holstering her weapon. "He's on the run. Let's get you to your gate." Angela nodded numbly, but the seeds of doubt had been planted. If Townsend was unhinged, then his claims meant nothing. But if there was even a sliver of truth, wouldn't ignoring it be irresponsible? Angela and Rodriguez reached the gate, where DHS instructions were clear. Angela should board her plane, head back to DC, and let the local field agents handle the Townsend situation. Rodriguez escorted her until she was safely in line to board. Angela handed her boarding pass to the airline staff, stepping onto the jet bridge. A sense of finality washed over her. She was leaving the city where Townsend had caused such an uproar, letting local authorities deal with him. Yet her gut twisted. What if Townsend's claim about a crate was genuine? She slid into her seat, arms tense, replaying Townsend's frantic words. "Check the crate bound for Dallas. You'll see I'm not crazy." She tried to reassure herself. The best solution was to pass the tip to local DHS. But the sense of urgency in Townsend's eyes, it haunted her. As the plane began boarding procedures, Angela grabbed her phone. She quickly typed a message to Morland. Townsend appeared at the airport. "Claimed something suspicious about a crate bound for Dallas in Terminal B, possibly paranoid, but can we have someone check?" A she hit. Send, and waited, knuckles white. A minute later, the plane doors closed. She realized she wouldn't get an immediate response. With a mounting sense of anxiety, she turned off her phone for takeoff. "I did what I could," she told herself. If Townsend's telling the truth, the local team will handle it. Yet her heart refused to settle. The flight was just under 2 hours to DC. She tried reading, then tried sleeping, but neither offered solace. By the time the plane landed and she switched her phone back on, she saw a single message from Morland. "We're on it. We'll update you. Focus on returning safely." Angela breathed easier, though her mind reeled with questions. She disembarked, feeling oddly detached from her surroundings. The familiarity of Reagan National Airport used to bring comfort, but now she felt the same tension, as if Townsend might leap out from behind any pillar. She found a text from her mother, simply asking if she'd landed safely. Angela mustered a quick reply. She then accepted a ride from a DHS official waiting at arrival's standard procedure for someone returning from a major conference. On the drive back, Angela stared out the window at the Potomac River, feeling every bit the stranger in her own city. It was close to 6 p.m. when Angela reached her apartment. She dragged her suitcase inside, longing for a warm shower. Before she could even pull off her shoes, her phone rang. Morland. "Angela," he said, voice taut. "You sitting down?" Her pulse quickened. "Yes, I'm home. What's wrong?" He took a breath. "We had local DHS check the cargo manifest in Terminal B for a Dallas-bound flight. They found a crate that wasn't on the official registry. It contained several high-grade scanning devices potentially used for intercepting communications. The crate was addressed to a private entity with questionable connections. We've opened an investigation." Angela's heart pounded in her chest. Townsend was right? She gripped the phone, speechless. "Townsend might have stumbled onto something real," Morland continued gravely. "He went about it the wrong way, of course, but there's more. The local agents found that certain TSA officials were paid off to overlook the crate's unusual paperwork. This is a bona fide infiltration scenario." A whirlwind of emotions struck Angela relief that her hunch to pass on Townsend's tip wasn't in vain, shock at the corruption and fear for what might come next. "So, what about Townsend? Where is he?" "We don't know," Morland admitted. "He's gone underground. Some suspect he might have known about the infiltration ring. Maybe he tried reporting it and got stonewalled. Or he discovered it by accident. Either way, he was being shut down from inside his own agency. That's likely why he reached out to you." Angela sank onto her couch, mind racing. Townsend's excessive paranoia might have been fueled by an actual conspiracy. Is DHS planning to exonerate him? He still broke several laws, Angela. He accessed restricted areas without authorization and evaded arrest. But if he cooperates, he might get leniency. For now, we need to find him, and we need to root out who's responsible for that crate. Angela nodded, though Morland couldn't see it. "I understand. Keep me informed." She ended the call and stared at the far wall for a long moment. Townsend was telling the truth, or at least part of it, guilt mixed with vindication. She'd dismissed him initially as a harasser or a bigot, but that doesn't erase how he treated me. She couldn't ignore the way he singled her out. Perhaps he suspected she might be an ally, but his approach was all wrong. Over the next week, DHS investigations ramped up. A swirl of rumors circulated about inside deals and compromised TSA officials. Angela was pulled into briefings, providing statements about Townsend's interactions with her. She told them everything: the text messages, the hotel visit, the note under her door. The more she divulged, the more it became clear Townsend was operating on a tip or a personal discovery about infiltration. He might have indeed been too thorough, but in this case, his thoroughness led him to evidence that some in the TSA wanted buried. Still, Townsend's methods were illegal. Angela wrestled with mixed feelings. Part of her wanted to see him face consequences for singling her out at the checkpoint and harassing her. Afterward, another part recognized the good he'd inadvertently done by exposing real corruption. One afternoon, Angela was summoned to a private office within the DHS headquarters. She stepped inside to find Thomas Morland, Agent Rodriguez, who'd been flown in from Atlanta for the investigation, and a tall man in a crisp navy suit. He introduced himself as Deputy Undersecretary James Marshall, an imposing figure with graying temples. "Miss Givens," he began, "first, let me commend you for your professionalism. We've learned that your vigilance and proper channeling of Townsend's tip allowed us to uncover a major infiltration attempt. The scanning devices found in that crate could have compromised sensitive communications nationwide." Angela nodded politely. "I was just doing my job, sir." Marshall studied her, hands clasped. "We're concerned about Townsend's location. Our investigators suspect that high-level TSA officials who were involved in the smuggling operation might be seeking to silence him. He's in danger." And he might be the key witness we need. Agent Rodriguez cleared her throat. There's intel he reached out to a reporter at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, possibly to blow the whistle on everything. Moreland stepped in. We don't want this going public prematurely. If Townsend goes to the press with half-baked allegations, it could compromise ongoing investigations. We need to ensure his safety and secure his testimony. Angela listened, a sense of foreboding creeping over her. Why had she been called to this meeting? Marshall continued, as though reading her mind. We believe Townsend trusts you. He singled you out, tried multiple times to contact you. We'd like to use that connection. If he resurfaces, we want you to reach out, encourage him to come in voluntarily. Her brow furrowed. You're asking me to be bait? No, Miss Givens, Marshall said gently. We're asking you to be the voice of reason. We need Townsend to trust that we'll protect him, not bury him. If he hears it from you, he might listen. Angela felt a wave of anxiety. This is getting more complicated by the minute. I'm willing to help, she said cautiously, but only if this is handled safely and ethically. I'm not going to trick him, Marshall nodded. Understood. We'll provide whatever support you need. The meeting concluded with a plan. Angela would keep her phone lines open in case. Townsend contacted her again. DHS would trace any communications, but they'd avoid confrontation until Townsend agreed to meet at a neutral location. If Townsend was truly seeking to expose wrongdoing, perhaps he'd realize Angela was an ally, not an enemy. Days turned into a week, no word from Townsend. In the meantime, DHS quietly arrested 3 TSA officials in Atlanta, part of the smuggling ring. The revelations were damning. They had accepted bribes to allow certain shipments through. The Dallas-bound crate was just one piece of a larger puzzle. The media got wind of a scandal brewing at TSA, but details were scarce. Amid the flurry, Angela continued her normal duties, though the Townsend situation weighed on her mind. She found herself frequently checking her phone, anticipating a call or a text. Each passing day she felt less certain that Townsend would surface. Then, late one afternoon, her phone buzzed with an unknown number. She answered, breath caught in her throat. "It's me," came Townsend's tense whisper. "I'm in DCTH. The walls are closing in. We need to talk." Angela swallowed hard. "Townsend, where are you? Are you okay?" A shaky breath on the other end. "Not really. I've been followed. I think they want to shut me up." Angela glanced around her cubicle. "Listen, I can help, but you have to trust me. The infiltration ring is being taken down. DHS wants your testimony. They want to protect you." A bitter laugh. "Protect me? Like they protected other whistleblowers? No thanks." "Please, you have to believe me," Angela insisted. "We found the crate. You were right. We need your information to trace the entire network. And we want to keep you safe from whoever is after you. Let me help." Silence crackled for a moment. "Why should I trust you? You wouldn't even meet me at the fountain." Angela's pulse quickened. "You approached me in ways that made me feel threatened. You singled me out at the checkpoint, rummaged through my bag, showed up at my hotel room uninvited. What did you expect me to do? Welcome you with open arms?" He sighed. "Look, I was desperate. I didn't know who else might be compromised. I thought you might be safe, but I couldn't risk the official channels. I'm sorry." Angela felt a flicker of empathy. "Townsend, come in. There's a safe house. Let me set it up with my superiors. You have my word, no one will harm you." He was quiet for a beat, then, "I'll think about it. But I need a day or two." She heard background noise, possibly city traffic. "All right. Let me know where to meet you. I'll arrange everything. No hidden agendas." "No," he said quickly. "I'll call you. Don't try to trace this phone. I'll contact you with a new number next time." Before Angela could respond, he hung up. She blinked, adrenaline coursing through her veins. At least he reached out. She immediately informed Moreland and Agent Rodriguez. They were encouraged but cautious. They set up a possible meeting location, a discreet DHS safe house on the outskirts of the city. Another 2 days passed. Angela was back in her apartment when her phone chimed. A text from a new number. Tonight. 9 p.m. UNION station. Come alone. She forwarded it to DHS. The plan was set. Angela would show up, but a discreet security team would be nearby, ready to intervene if Townsend was in danger or if he tried anything reckless. At 8:45 p.m., Angela arrived at Union Station, the grand marble hall bustling with commuters and tourists. She felt her heart hammering. She was unarmed by design, to appear non-threatening, and wore a casual outfit to blend in. Over the phone earlier, Townsend had insisted, no wires, no guns. She'd assured him that she'd comply. Scanning the crowd, Angela spotted Townsend sitting on a bench near a coffee kiosk. Wearing a baseball cap pulled low, he looked worn, with dark circles under his eyes. She approached slowly, hands visible. He stood, gave her a wary nod. Thanks for coming. She gestured to a table off to the side, away from foot traffic. They sat, tension thick in the air. I appreciate you meeting me, Angela began gently. We can keep you safe. Townsend's eyes darted around. I want a guarantee. I'll turn over everything, files, recordings, names, but I need a promise of immunity. They'll try to frame me for trespassing, hacking whatever they can. Angela nodded. I can't promise immunity on the spot, but I've been told your cooperation will be heavily considered. You exposed criminals inside TSA. That counts for something. He slumped in his seat, tired. Fine. Let's get it over with. Angela discreetly texted a code to Rodriguez, who was stationed nearby with a small team. They'd escort Townsend to the safe house. There's a car waiting outside, Angela said quietly. They'll take you somewhere secure. Townsend swallowed, then met her gaze. Angela, I'm sorry if I acted like a jerk at the checkpoint. I needed to see if you were legit, but I handled it wrong. Her expression softened. It's done. Let's focus on fixing this. He gave a short nod. They stood and walked toward the exit. Security officers melted out of the crowd, forming a subtle cordon around them. Townsend stiffened, but didn't resist. Moments later, they stepped into a nondescript SUV. Angela sat beside him in the back seat as Rodriguez got behind the wheel. Where to? Townsend asked warily. To a safe house near Chevy Chase, Rodriguez replied, You'll be debriefed there. Townsend exhaled a shaky breath. Let's go. Over the following week, Townsend submitted to DHS questioning. He turned over evidence linking several TSA and even some external contractors to a broader smuggling and espionage network. In return, the higher-ups recognized Townsend's role as a whistleblower, though his methods had violated numerous protocols. Negotiations were ongoing about what charges he might face, if any. Media outlets began reporting on the TSA smuggling scandal, praising an unnamed official who'd brought it to light. Angela watched the drama unfold from a slight distance, focusing on her day-to-day DHS responsibilities. Occasionally, she'd be called in for clarifications, and each time Townsend was present, he'd offer a polite nod. Their initial antagonism had melted into a cautious respect. One morning, Angela arrived at her desk to find an email from the Deputy Undersecretary. The gist, her calm conduct and crucial actions had not gone unnoticed. She was to be commended. A lateral promotion was on the horizon, more responsibility, better resources. She smiled, feeling a sense of poetic justice. Despite the discrimination she faced initially, her professionalism had shone through. Townsend, on the other hand, was dealing with the fallout of his unorthodox approach. DHS recommended that while he might avoid jail time, he would likely lose his TSA position. He was also asked to testify against the corrupt ring. Word traveled fast. Townsend's once stellar record was now marred. He was effectively blacklisted from returning to TSA or other federal agencies. The hard karma had arrived. He had done the right thing the wrong way, and though he'd inadvertently helped the nation, he couldn't escape accountability for his own misconduct. Angela learned the final verdict a few days later. Townsend accepted a deal, full cooperation, in exchange for dropping most of the charges. He'd lose his TSA job and pension, but his criminal record would be expunged if he followed through with the testimony. The day after the agreement was signed, Townsend appeared at DHS headquarters to finalize details. Angela happened to be walking through the lobby when she spotted him leaving. Their eyes met. He hesitated, then walked over. "I'm heading out, probably for good," she nodded. "You're doing the right thing by testifying." He shrugged, a bittersweet smile flickering. "It cost me everything. But maybe that's the price for uncovering corruption." Angela offered a small, empathetic nod. "Sometimes doing the right thing is messy." Townsend exhaled. "I've got regrets, especially how I targeted you at the start." He paused. "You were strong, though. You handled everything with dignity." She found no malice left in her heart. "Be well, Townsend." And so he walked out the door, carrying the weight of both pride and punishment. Angela stood there for a moment, absorbing the finality of it. In an unexpected twist, Townsend's intrusive suspicion ended up exposing a serious threat. Yet his own lack of respect for procedure and fairness had cost him dearly. Weeks turned into months. The TSA corruption scandal eventually left the front pages, replaced by new headlines and crises. Inside DHS, changes were instituted, stricter oversight and internal audits. Angela continued her work, balancing discrete tasks with public-facing responsibilities. She sometimes thought back to Townsend, wondering if he'd found a new path in life. Eventually, she received a promotion, special liaison for inter-agency threat management. Her mother and grandmother beamed with pride, reminding her how far she'd come from a modest upbringing in Charlotte. She never forgot the day Townsend singled her out at the security checkpoint, how that single event spiraled into uncovering a national threat. Life had a strange way of weaving people's stories together. On a crisp autumn day, Angela found herself at the Hyatt Regency in D.C., attending a new conference. She walked through the lobby, noticing the polished floors and bustling crowd. It felt reminiscent of Atlanta's conference months ago, yet everything was different now. She was different, more seasoned, more confident in her ability to navigate the complexities of her job. In her briefcase, safely tucked away, was her Homeland Security badge. She carried it with pride, knowing that her identity as a black woman in a high-stakes federal position was both a privilege and a responsibility. She recalled the frustration of being singled out for extra scrutiny, but now she stood tall, representing a system she hoped to improve from within. Outside the conference room, she ran into Agent Rodriguez, who greeted her warmly. They spoke briefly about the new measures being rolled out across airports nationwide, ensuring that infiltration attempts like the one Townsend discovered would be much harder to pull off. They also reflected on how ironically vital Townsend's role had been. Rodriguez shook her head. The irony is, if he'd followed protocol, he might still be employed and recognized as a hero. Angela nodded in agreement. Sometimes the line between hero and villain is blurred by method and intent. True, Rodriguez said with a small smile. Anyway, good luck with your talk today. Angela returned the smile, stepping into the bustling conference room. The events in Atlanta, the stolen crate, Townsend's frantic pleas, these were now pages in her personal history, lessons learned. She had faced racism, suspicion, and conspiracy, yet emerged stronger. Her grandmother's words echoed in her mind, "Never let anyone get in the way of where you're going." Angela took her seat at the front, ready for whatever new challenges lay ahead, secure in the knowledge that she had found a way to wield her authority with integrity and compassion. In the end, justice had been served, truth had come to light, and a complicated man named Townsend paid the price for his methods, even as he helped rescue the nation from a hidden threat. Hard karma had indeed hit back. Angela's star continued to rise, shining as a testament that sometimes adversity is just the catalyst for greater triumph. Thank you for following Angela's gripping journey. From a tense airport standoff to the unraveling of a hidden conspiracy within the very agency sworn to protect us. Her story reminds us that integrity matters, even when the odds and certain individuals are stacked against us. With perseverance, Angela claimed her rightful place among the country's most committed defenders. Meanwhile, Officer Townsend's desperate search for truth carried severe consequences, illustrating that how you pursue justice can be as important as the goal itself. His downfall stands as a cautionary tale about pushing boundaries too far, too fast. If you enjoyed this intense tale of suspense, betrayal, and redemption, don't forget to like this video, share it with friends who love a good drama, and subscribe to our channel for more stories that keep you on the edge of your seat. Your support helps us bring you even more fascinating narratives and real-life lessons. Thank you.